Hey, youth ministry leader, I want you to think back. You're in the 8th grade. It is a crazy time. It is a freaky time. It is a frightening and scary time. Remember that? I know what I was for me. And then I realized I'm going into 9th grade. That's even crazier. That's even freakier. That's even scarier. That's even more intimidating. Well, now that we're adults and we're the ministry leaders, it's on us to create the culture of where those 8th graders can connect and connect well into 9th grade. So the question is, how do we successfully get our 8th graders and connect them well into the high school ministry? Well, that, my friends, is what's next on NGM Focus. Hey, thanks again for joining NGM Focus, and I just appreciate so much your willingness to be part of this whole new operation we have with Next Gen Matters, and especially in regards to our resource, NGM Focus. We have a lot to cover today on internal transitions, and I hope this is going to be a blessing to you. And honestly, I hope this will bless many 8th graders who are coming into 9th grade. Let's dive right in. Got my notes here. I hope you guys have yours. It really does help if you could pull them down as you watch this. So as I kind of refer to these, that you can see them and we can kind of literally be on the same page. Our crucial components. Now, typically in the crucial components section, I'm sharing some scripture verses, some kind of more of a theological, let's say, framework or construct. The components of why, this is the why. And then how is more of the practical suggestions. Well, I'm going to be honest with you. There's not a lot of verses I have, like there's no verses I have right here in the crucial components. I look through the Jeremiah's passage. I look through Paul's letter to Titus. I'm kidding, okay? But I'm saying there's not a lot of scriptures that say, verily, I say unto you, from 8th grade to 9th grade. But there are some biblical principles, and I at least want to lay out some things for you guys to consider. One must see the need to have this transition go smooth. That's the beginning of our notes. We have to see the need to have this transition go smooth. And I asked the big question, why? I got 5 bullet points, and 4 of them are for us to really look through. 5th one is more of like just admitting this is not a comprehensive list, okay? So the 4 major bullet points I have is 8th grade, then the next is 10th grade, then 2 things within high school ministry. 8th grade, let's start there. So 8th grade, here's the deal. 8th grade is a very, very, very pivotal time in the life of an adolescent. All right? That 8th grader who's looking at you like, what's up? Okay? You guys know the look, right? They're looking at you like, man, are you done yet? Okay? 2 years earlier, they were that same dude, that same young lady, but especially dudes, especially guys, because we can pack the attitude as guys, okay? That 8th grader, 2 years earlier, was the most eager young person you had in the 6th grade to read the Bible or to open in prayer. Do you remember that? Hey, who will open us in prayer? And Stevie's over there. Oh, I will. Pick me. Now I'm gonna admit my age. I'm a child of the 70s. One of my favorite TV shows in the 1970s. Y'all can laugh. It's okay. I'm secure. Usually. But one of my favorite shows was Welcome Back, Kotter. And who was in the front row answering all the questions? Horshack. Oh, pick me, Mr. Kotter. If you guys haven't seen it, it's called YouTube. I actually pulled it on my students one day. It was awesome in class. Here's the deal. That 6th grader, that eager beaver, that 6th grader, pick me. Or they're knocking each other. It's like it's a loose ball on a basketball court, right? Like, oh, I want to read the Bible. 2 years later, they're like, what's up? What happens? What's the switch? Well, one thing we know is puberty. Seriously, okay? Puberty switching. Another big switch that's going on is they're going from a concrete thinking to abstract thinking. Therefore, they're asking some significant, at least in their heart, if not out loud, they're asking significant faith questions. Is this whole God thing for real? Is Jesus for real? Is the Bible legit? And they're being pounded by the culture, by the world already. So yeah, I have in your notes here, they're asking themselves this question. Is this whole Christian life thing, is this like my parents or is it mine? In other words, is it inherited or is it truly internal, intrinsic? So 8th grade, they're beginning to they're pushing back because they're asking some really honest questions. Second bullet point, I put in your notes here. It seems to me, and I watch this, I've been in this rodeo a long time, and I watch this. By 10th grade, they're voting. So have that in your notes. They're voting by the time they're in 10th grade. They vote with their feet, their attendance, or they vote with their face, their attitude. And you probably, if you're in high school ministry, you have seen it. If you're a parent of someone who's gone through high school, you've seen it. So you see, 8th grade, they're starting to push back, especially the child who grew up in the evangelical church / evangelical home. To push them back. They want to know if it's real. And actually, I'm okay with that as long as they come to the right conclusion, okay? So 8th grade to 10th grade, they got a lot of crazy stuff going on. What's in the middle? 9th grade. You see the importance of 9th grade? Next 2 bullet points. High school culture is, it's just very real. It's either very constructive or very destructive. High school culture is very constructive or very destructive to one's faith. Second area there, that 4th bullet point is the high school students transition. Watch this. The high school student will transition from family to friends when it comes to social engagement. They will transition from family to friends for their social engagement. I mean, let's be honest. Not too many 8th, 9th, 10th, 11th graders on a Friday or Saturday like, I think I'd rather stay home and watch Wheel of Fortune with mom and dad. Dude, they're out the door. They're going to hang out with their friends at the movies. Or at least that's what mom and dad are told. You guys know what I'm talking about, right? Sitting at church. Are they going to sit with their family or their friends? So high school, the whole switch is taking place of social engagement from family to friends. And actually, that's okay if they have healthy friends and if they still respect their parents. And by the way, caveat here, I'm not saying that the parents stop having the greatest influence. I would still make the argument that parents still have the greatest influence. But when it comes to hang time, they want to hang with their friends, not just their family. And then the 5th bullet point, I already said it. This is not a comprehensive list. You could come up with many, many more reasons of why we need to have this transition go smooth. This is not Lord of the Rings. I'm not the sage on the stage at the top of the mountain with a long gray beard. I don't have all the answers. I'm just a guy who hopefully can help provide some insights and help you guys keep moving on. In your notes, I said this. Based on all these areas, therefore, remember the old Bible thing, circle the word therefore, see what's there for. Therefore, we need to have, and I put here, we need to have these transitions go well for 3 major reasons. 3 major reasons I see. And by the way, as I go through this, I got excited writing this the other night because I was thinking this is a great, let's say, thesis or a great argument for healthy high school ministry. Here's the 3 things that we need to have our students involved in. Scriptural instruction, social engagement, and serving opportunities. You see, a healthy high school ministry has all 3. They have scriptural instruction, social engagement, and serving opportunities. That's another reason to have our 8th graders transition well into high school ministry so they can have these that all honor God. Practical suggestions, I have 8. You could come up with more. I just have 8. First one is repeat. Yeah, go back to 2 weeks ago. Think back to what we were looking at from 5th grade into 6th grade. Some of those very same steps we took for 5th grade into 6th grade into middle school ministry, we can do with the 8th graders into the high school ministry. I also mentioned your integrated events, and here's what I mean. I'm a big fan. I'll say it again. I'm a big fan of high school, middle school being separate. I realize some of you have smaller ministries, and maybe your cards are played as kind of you're more or less forced to be like one group. Right now, my group where I serve as the volunteer youth pastor, we have almost 20 now. But up until the last few years, we've only had 2 or 3, and they were middle school. Well, we began to grow, okay? And with that growth, we have some high school students now. We as a team are already talking about what are we going to do to separate them. So for many of you watching this, you already have a good number of middle school students and high school students. But how's this? Do 2 or 3 events a year, the big stuff, where you actually bring them together, right? So think about that. Whether it's a big Christian music festival, a concert, a camp. On the West Coast in Seattle, I did camp for years. 100-some students would come from our church for camp. We had 50% in both groups, middle and high school. Structurally, almost everything was done separate. Almost everything. Housing was separate, middle school, high school. Obviously, the game structure was separate. The one thing that we did to bring them together were the evening sessions. And in doing that, I watched a lot of our high school students actually missionally reach out to our middle schoolers. And it was a sweet ride because I'm watching the middle schoolers are watching the high schoolers worship. They're watching high schoolers focused on engagement of the Word of God. So they're watching, the middle schoolers are watching the high school ministry in a healthy way. I want to be part of that. Getting hungry for high school ministry, getting to know high school students, seeing what's ahead of them. So integrated events, do 2 or 3 a year. Large group, yeah, and this refers to that big move up event. So think again about the day that you move up your students. I'm going to say it. I'm a big fan of moving the students up the beginning of the summer. I'll share more about that in the next few moments. But I'm a big fan of moving the students up the beginning of the summer. So the Sunday after high school graduations are done, boom, move up. That's when those 8th graders went from the junior high or middle school ministry into our high school ministry. So what we did, literally right after the high school service was done on Sunday morning, we had our big promo event. Literally right after that, including lunch. We went from the gym we met in the middle school. We rented that out because we didn't have a building at that point. So we met in a gym and we rolled right out for lunch into the event. So those 8th/rising 9th graders that just got promoted into 9th grade that morning are now in the high school ministry going out for the high school events. Boom. All right. So that was a great opportunity for instant connection. Next thing you notice, I have small group and I have 2 little kind of subpoints, leader and gathering, leaders and gathering. So with your small group, and most of us do small groups based on same grade, same gender. Okay. So like 9th grade. So think about this. Just like you did 2 weeks ago, we looked at getting the middle school leaders to kind of be getting to know the 5th graders, the same principles here. So the 9th grade leaders are already in place. That's another reason you have to be on game with making sure your new leadership team is already in place, ready to rock and roll before you do the promotion. College freshmen aren't dropped off at dorms and there's no RAs. Colleges get it. You have to already have your infrastructure in place. Same thing with high school ministry. Have your new leadership team or have your adults ready to rock and roll, ready to go right there before move up. And they already have been reaching out to those 9th grade leaders have already been reaching out to the 8th graders. So when they come in the 9th grade, they already know who they are. And also you have a gathering. Here's a thought, just a suggestion. So here's that move up promo day, right? Here's that big event, that large group high school event. Check this out. Maybe the week prior or just immediately right after the high school event, you have a small group event. Chilling at so-and-so's house, doing something together, whatever. I think it's even more beneficial to have the small group gathering before the big group. Think about that, okay? Next one I have is individual students. This means you have to have very mature, and I put in your notes, spiritually and socially mature high school upperclassmen to pull this off. But consider this. If you had high school upperclassmen, spiritually and socially mature, who are like, I'm all in on this. I will help. This will be a ministry to me. They will adopt a rising 9th grader. And during that summer and or the early part of that school year, they take this on as a ministry. I mean, for real. What social benefit does a high school upperclassman have by hanging out with a freshman? Not a lot, usually. But spiritually, they can have great benefit. So letting your upperclassmen know this is a great chance for you to serve and to minister and to pull in a new 9th grader. So dude, check that out. So now that 9th grader is not only having their 9th grade friends hanging out with them, they're also connecting with their new 9th grade leader. They're also connecting with many students in the group. They specifically have juniors and seniors who maybe have a sweet ride, okay? I mean, seriously, they are now getting a chance to be seen with an upperclassman. You talk about swag. I mean, that is legit, okay? So that's huge. Peer ministry is huge, and that's one way of doing it. Last few things here. Serving teams and mission trip. Serving teams and mission trip. If you already have your serving teams in place, and again, I'm thinking about the beginning of the summer doing the move up, you have various serving teams in place, and your new freshmen are already seeing the different ministry teams you have, and maybe they're already getting their feet wet and they're checking out different ministry teams, we as adults know the power of getting involved with other men and other women in ministry teams in our church. When you serve side by side with other adults, you connect. Well, how much more for an adolescence? When one of the deepest needs of adolescence is connection with their peers. And when you're serving together, dude, right? Hey, missions trip. Again, because I'm a big fan of the move up at the beginning of the summer. So our missions trip in the middle of the summer didn't start in July. It wasn't sign up, show up, and we go serve. No. It was no. Before the Great Commission, Jesus had 2+ years with those 12, okay? Same thing. We had 12 weeks. I know it's not 2.5 years, but still, there was 12 weeks that we spent with our high school students who were going to be on mission during our week. But just before the week of missions trip, we had that whole 12 weeks to do hardcore discipleship training and hardcore becoming a team, hardcore focusing on how to do the disciplines of ministry. And who also joined in? The rising 9th graders. Those 8th graders were already encouraged in March and April to be part of that summer missions team. There's a lot of things I did in 30 some years of ministry, especially 20 as a youth pastor, that I kind of go, that was okay. Could have done better. I'll tell you what, y'all, that's one thing I look back and go, that was awesome. And that was getting the 8th graders to be part of the high school ministry missions team before they even jumped in. I watched such a difference between the freshmen, the new freshmen, okay? I watched such a major difference between the freshmen that went on the mission trip as a newbie freshman. Spiritually and socially, they connected with that high school group as opposed to the students that did not go. They were behind. The last thing in your notes says here is pre-summer move-up. Pre-summer move-up. Now, I'm not going to say much about this other than what I've already said, but I decided this week I'm going to do a whole session, maybe this next week or maybe 2 weeks from now, on this topic of what are the benefits of moving your students up at the beginning of the summer? How can you do that? How do you talk to the folks above you who make bigger decisions than you to get the permission to do that? I'm going to kind of coach you a little bit on that. Again, I'm a big fan of moving up. Before we tap out, you got your action steps section and your let's engage section. Action steps, there's 3 questions to look through just for you to process, analyze. Don't beat yourself up, but just think, hey, what's working, what's not? What are some things we can try? Share these things with your leadership teams. Also, the let's engage. My man, Scott Shepard. Thank you, Scott, for already posting this week. I threw it out to the NGM Focus Face group. That's a lot to say, right? And we have that Facebook group just for those who subscribe to this engagement. And there's some things there to think through. Scott shared some great ideas of what he's been doing in his ministry to help the new 8th grader or new 9th graders feel connected. So Scott, thank you for that. Praise God. Thank you. Thank you again. I sincerely mean that. Thank you for being part of this and for serving students as you serve Jesus. And remember, what you do matters because students matter, because the gospel matters. Have a great, great week.